Every day, Cintas service reps help businesses get ready for the workday. They provide freshly laundered workwear delivered every week. Mats, mops, restroom and cleaning supplies. First aid and safety products to help your employees stay safe. They even test and inspect fire extinguishers and emergency lights. Cintas helps keep your business running smoothly. See what Cintas can do for you. Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Today on CityCast Houston, we're diving into something that might surprise you about Houston's food scene. Barbecue and Tex-Mex often steal the show, but our location on the Gulf Coast gives us access to some of the freshest seafood around, from Gulf shrimp to the daily catch. And this month, oysters, blue crab, and more are all in season. But with so many amazing seafood restaurants, how do you pick the best spot? I've invited Raz Halili, known as the Oyster Prince of Texas and the owner of Pier Seafood and Fish Company Tacos, to guide us through Houston's rich and delicious seafood options. It's Wednesday, October 9th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Raz, what's up, man? Welcome in to CityCast Houston. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Man, I'm so excited to get some of your recommendations. But before you started running restaurants and distributing oysters nationwide, you grew up on the fishing docks of Galveston Bay in San Leon. How would you describe the work it takes to harvest oysters in the Gulf?
Oh man, it's rugged work. Like they say, blood money, because you're out there, cold winter days, hot summer days, early mornings, late evenings, and you're battling the elements of Mother Nature. So to bring those oysters from ground level up, making sure you have the right mature adult oyster, beautiful spec, and then getting to a restaurant. There's a lot of work involved to it, and it's honorable work what these guys do.
Oh, absolutely. And it gives you a greater appreciation of what you're eating as well, right?
Absolutely. You know, you see not just the beautiful animal and what it is, but also what they provide in our base systems and the creativity that some of these chefs come up with this dish. It's amazing.
So what's your favorite way to eat oysters? Is it raw in the half shell or something else?
Of course, I love, a fresh raw oyster on the half shell during peak times. But I say my favorite way year round to eat them is char grilled over wood. And you can douse them in different types of herb butters, cheeses, and you get super creative with it. That's my favorite way to enjoy them.
Okay, Ross, let's stay on oysters because they're such a big part of Houston's culture, and there's so many ways to prepare them, from raw, char grilled, or fried. Where are you recommending our listeners go for some oysters?
Well, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say my restaurant, Pier 6, and you got to go with the hot-blooded oysters. Those are done over the wood grill. They've got a nice habanero butter to it, and you get some spice with the cheeses. It's a great dish.
Everybody posts about those oysters anytime they go to Pier 6. I love seeing those. They look so good on Instagram as well, by the way.
Yeah, it's a fan favorite, so appreciate that.
Hey, besides Pier 6, any other places to get some great oysters?
Yeah, man. We're really fortunate here in the Houston area because we have so many great restaurants. You go down to La Lucha, you go to Caracol, you go to some of these amazing spots around town, even in some of the suburbs, the Floyds. These guys, they put their own spin on oysters, and they also have great raw bars.
For our oyster haters, because there are a lot of people who are just like, oh, I don't know, I can't do the texture. It just doesn't look right. I used to be that way until I tried them, and now I just love them. What would you recommend for them? Like, how should they have it prepared if they want to try it for the first time?
Well, we always want to start them gently into to eating oysters. I do a lot of food shows around the country, and we have raw bar presentations, and I get people all the time that say, "Oh, I've never had an oyster, but I want to try an oyster." And I'm like, you might want to start with a cooked one first. Get over the texture barrier. Like I said, on the wood grill is always great to start with, but definitely if you're going to go raw, you want to dress it up, some lemons, cocktail horseradish, or a mignonette, and then a cracker. And people always say, "Well, do I chew it? Do I swallow it?" You always want to chew it. You want to enjoy the oyster, all the elements to get those umami flavors.
Okay, let's talk about shrimp because that's also a huge part of our seafood bounty here. Gulf shrimp, right? It's so iconic. What's the best way to cook them first for you?
For me, it's sauteed shrimp like a shrimp scampi with butter. It's just Gulf shrimp are, I would say, the best shrimp in the world. You can't compare the flavors, white shrimp, brown shrimp. And just as oysters, you can get so creative with them.
Okay, now give me some recommendations around town. Which restaurant should we go to and what should we order to really take advantage of this beautiful shrimp that we get?
Bobby Matos over at La Lucha, he has this shrimp remoulade, and it's one of my favorite shrimp dishes around town.
What makes it so good?
It sounds like a simple dish, and it's been around for some time, but there's a lot of complex flavors in there, and you get the right amount of flavor of the shrimp with the remoulade and also the iceberg lettuce. It just all complements it so well.
Okay, as a chef, what are your thoughts on fried shrimp? Like, is that allowed? Is it okay? What are we thinking here?
Well, I'm definitely not a chef, but being in the kitchen a lot, I love fried shrimp. Summer days growing up, we eat a lot of fried shrimp, and they're just, you get that nice crunch and sweetness of shrimp, whether it's, your cocktail sauce or whatever you want to use. People even use just ketchup or tartar sauce. It's an iconic dish, and it always has its place on the menu.
Okay, let's go to the heavy hitters now. Fish, okay? We know how important it is to so many menus. There's so many different species that you can catch in the Gulf. So let's start off with some recommendations. Which restaurants are you recommending and which dish to really take advantage of the fish that we get here?
Oh, man. Again, another iconic fin fish is going to be American red snapper. And I personally know these guys that harvest majority of the snapper that we bring into the Houston market. That's going to be from Katie's Seafood down in Galveston. Buddy Gwendon and his family-run business similar to mine. Then they care a lot about their fishery, as do we. They put the extra effort into making sure that Houstonians get the freshest wild-caught American red snapper. Some of my favorites around town, again, Fish Company Taco down in Galveston on the island, the Empire Taco. It's a very simple dish, but that black ginger soy sauce mixed in with a tempura shrimp on the taco, it's delicious. And if you want to head into town and even around town, Good Company, they do a very simple mesquite grilled Gulf snapper, and it's delicious. You get that paired with a couple sides. It's, in my opinion, one of the best ways to enjoy fish.
I always recommend red snapper to people who are kind of hesitant, right? That might not like seafood, because I think it's just the easiest fish to eat. And when you cook it whole, fresh grilled, the flavors are amazing, but also the texture is really nice. And, some people might not like seafood, but I love red snapper. And I've had a chance to go fish for red snapper. When you go catch it, bring it in, cook it yourself, it is just amazing how good it is fresh.
Yeah, it's a beautiful fish, and it's also a very healthy fish. It's very good for cholesterol. So I'm always recommending that as an option. And people are always like, "Oh, I can't do fish," and I'm like, "Look, there's not a strong fish flavor there, and when you grill it up, the spices and all the different ways to enjoy it, it's amazing." And that's one thing I think people miss is how healthy seafood is. If you look at just tribes and ethnicities around the world that rely solely on seafood, you see the longevity that they have. I say the seafood plays a big part of that.
How about you? What is your favorite kind of fish?
It's American red snapper. It's just very simple, and you can do so many different things with it.
Man, I love yellowfin. I could eat that every single day. You just get a nice fillet of it. Oh, so amazing.
Yeah, yellowfin for going sushi. Obviously, the tunas, those are prized possession. The bluefins, the yellowfins, and different ways of doing it. Uchi does a phenomenal job with all their dishes. I would say that's one of my favorite restaurants around town.
Oh, yeah. Uchi is by far one of the best. Yeah. And, it's amazing what they come up with and how they take advantage of all the seafood, not only here, but they also get it imported in. But, man, they do a great job.
Just tell the guys, hey, just send me down the cold tastings. And obviously, even not just seafood, the 72-hour short rib, you can't go wrong with that. But the hama chili is going to be my favorite. A lot of people try to do it, but they don't really pull it off. And, it seems simple, but they do a great job.
Researching schools for my kids was important to me and my wife. And if you're currently doing that, then I have another option in education beyond the traditional offerings for your family. Check out The Village School. It was named a top 20 best private school in America by niche.com and offers pre-K through 12th grade. The Village School curriculum is rigorous and focuses on STEAM. That's a combination of science, technology, math, and the arts, so students are prepared to accomplish great things in their personal journeys. Want to see if the Village School is right for you and your student? Join them on November 8th at 9 a.m. for their open house, where you can tour the campus, meet with faculty, and see how you fit into their incredibly diverse community that has more than 90 countries represented. Register for the open house at thevillageschool.com. Again, their open house is on November 8th, and you can register at thevillageschool.com. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's talk about your mental health. October is a season for wearing masks and costumes, but some of us feel like we wear a mask and hide more often than we want to, whether it's at work, with friends, or around our family. But therapy can help you learn to accept all parts of yourself, so you can take off that emotional mask. I tried therapy earlier this year to help learn positive coping skills and to prepare myself emotionally for anything life throws at me. Remember, therapy isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, so it's meant to be convenient and flexible. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com /citycast today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com /citycast.
Hi, this is David Plotz of CityCast. Have you thought about a gift for yourself this year? One that has the power to help you grow and learn and become a better version of yourself? Give yourself the gift of language by getting Babbel. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by language experts, Babbel gets you talking a new language in 3 weeks, because talking is the key to really knowing a language. And that's how Babbel approaches it. It's designed for real conversation. So I have a trip to France planned with my girlfriend. Was it inspired by the Olympics? Yes, it was. And it's given me the chance to revive my old high school French. And it's so fun to catch back up with the vocabulary I'd forgotten, to remember all the food. For example, I'm in a lesson on ingredients, so I'm going to make crepes with butter and sugar. Avec sucre et de beurre salé, on va se régaler. We're going to have a feast. They learned this great new French expression too. J'en ai l'eau à la bouche. That means I have water in the mouth. That means it's mouth-watering. Love it. Love French. Anyway, Babbel gets you talking, and studies from Yale and Michigan State University and other leading universities prove that it works. So here is a special holiday deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com /citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com /citycast, spelled BABBEL.com /citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Let's talk about crab legs, because they are starting to trend on social media again. It's so popular. Where do you recommend we go get some crab legs?
Definitely not at one of the buffet spots where you're going to have to get into for a fight over them. If you see those videos, it's wild. And they're worth getting a fight over. But I would say stick to like Trulux. They do a phenomenal job with the seafood that they bring in. Very high quality seafoods that they do bring in. They have a great special, I believe, for stone crab. All you can eat stone crab, if they're still doing that. I've been in there for it. It's amazing stone crab down in Florida. It's a sustainable fishery. And just being able to enjoy that so simply cooked, done right, it's delicious.
Okay, for you, what's the most unique, flavorful seafood dish you've had in the last month that is a must-try for our listeners and for me?
Well, in the last month, I've been kind of busy because my wife just gave birth to our third, so I haven't been able to dine out too much. Thank you. But, there's so many amazing complex dishes around town, and, sticking with crab, it's not, I would say it's not a very complex, but a lot of places do it, and they don't typically do it right. I think Brennan's does a phenomenal crab cake.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, it's so light and airy and full of crab, and it's not a lot of filling in there. And like I said, it's complex when you look at putting it together, but tasting it wise, you just like, oh, you think you could do it at home, but it's not that simple.
Those are the best dishes, right? The ones that look like, oh, I could make this at home, but the people in the back that are working on this, each crab cake is just
Yeah.
masterfully prepared. It is so good. Brendan's always hits with that crab cake.
Like I said, it's a great dish. If you've never tried it, you definitely need to go in there and have that.
Okay, I want to get some of your professional advice on this, because now listeners who are all amped and ready to go, they're like, I want to go try a great seafood restaurant. How can they tell if the seafood is fresh from the Gulf or if it's something that's been frozen or imported?
It's really tough. You're going to have to do your research, ask a lot of questions. Seeing a cooked dish, it's not always easy to tell. I know a lot of seafood guys have been doing it a long time, and even they have a hard time identifying if it's something that's been previously frozen or not when it's cooked and fried so many different ways. But, a trusted restaurant, check out what they're doing on their social media, their websites. Most of the time these days, chefs are really promoting high quality, sustainable foods. And, sometimes there's raw bars. You can always ask for an oyster tag to see when oysters were harvested to make sure you're getting fresh, high quality oysters. If they do have fish in a case, always look at the eyes, make sure the eyes are clear, not foggy, and make sure look at the gills, make sure they're pink. And, those are things you want to look at. Those are telltales. And, honestly, the integrity of a restaurant, if you ask it, is this shrimp, is it domestic or is it imported? I think, majority of the time they're going to be honest with you.
Before I let you go, I wanted to dive a little deeper, pun intended, into the local fishing and seafood industry for Houston, right? We're a port city right here on the Gulf Coast, and it is such an important part of our city. But I think people may not realize how big or essential the industry is for our region. What would you tell our listeners who are just learning about this huge seafood industry?
We have this massive bounty of food right here in not just Galveston Bay, but all along the Gulf Coast. And it provides thousands of jobs, and it's a trickle-down effect, not just the guys harvesting the seafood or the processors, but you have truck drivers, you have mechanic shops, you have retail shops that all these boats they shop from or these fishermen utilize. So it looks like a smaller economy, but when you look at the bigger picture, there's thousands of jobs that stretch across the Gulf Coast that all come down to this beautiful bounty. And we really need to, respect to the guys that do this work, because it is honorable work. They risk their lives going out on the waters to harvest these seafoods. And there's also the state agencies that do their part of making sure that we're harvesting in sustainable manners. And we have to work collectively together to make sure that we're creating a sustainable fishery to pass down for generations and generations. Because if you look at the history of commercial fishing, it dates back to from the beginning of time. Indians were out there harvesting oysters. The stories of, they would see seagulls bringing oysters and dropping them down, and they would split open and they would peck the meat out. That's, how some people believe that people came to find out how you would eat an oyster.
Oh, wow, that is so beautiful. And this industry here, it's so important, not only to our region, but also to many immigrant families like yours who spent time fishing, shrimping, oystering. What does it mean for families like yours?
Yeah, and when you look at it, it's very labor-intensive work. It's a lot of immigrant families or their families have done it, and they're teaching their kids to do it. For me, my father, he's an Albanian from Kosovo who's made his way over, and he ended up in Chicago at first, washing cars and dishwasher. And he heard there's a lot of guys from the Balkan region down in Louisiana making $25 a day. And, back in the late 1970s, that was big money. And so he made his way down there, and you can put the dots together, and he was very business savvy, and he just put his head down and started working and saved up all his money and sacrificed, met my mother, and together she became his deckhand. And, she was an American. She's, born here in this country, but she's worked ever since she was a kid, grew up very poor. And, together they started one of the largest oyster companies in the country now. And I see that with many immigrant families. You look at the shrimping community, it's mostly Vietnamese that still do it today. You look at the crab industry, it's similar. Oystering, mostly Hispanic. And these guys, they're very hard, honorable workers. And they want to go out and earn, like I said, a decent living and provide for their families. And they do that by risking their lives going out in these waters.
Well, I truly appreciate you joining me, giving these recommendations that are going to help support all of these workers. We're going to go out and eat at all these great restaurants and support the community. So thank you so much, Raz. I truly appreciate it. And best of luck. Pier 6 is killing it. I'd love to see that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to discuss, not just oysters, but my restaurants and the beautiful bounty of seafood that we have here. So I hope everyone takes advantage of, the information we've given them and go out and be brave, try some new seafood dishes.
Yep.
We're still a meat and potatoes country, but, we need to break through that barrier.
Absolutely. That was Raz Halili. You can find all his recommendations in our show notes. Before we go, share this episode with 3 friends who love seafood and 3 friends who don't, so they can find some new flavors. And if you're new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so we can bring you news, culture, and some joy about H-Town every single day. We also have a daily newsletter called Hey Houston dropping in your inbox every morning, and you can subscribe to that at houston.citycast.fm. Thanks. That will do it for today. I'm Raheel Ramzanali. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. Who spent time fishing or shrimping or oystering? That's not the right term, is it? Oystering?
Yeah, oystering. Yeah, oystering.
Is that
Harvesting
fine? Okay.
oysters. Yeah.